Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's day is off to a fantastic start. Good. Got my setup going. I've got my coffee. 5:30 in the morning here. The baby is asleep. Life is good. And we'll dive right in with no further ado. I guess it's 8:30 out on the East Coast, right? Things have been happening for a while out there. Australia is probably like 4 days in the future or something. All right, here we go. As always, Linchpin community coming through, much appreciated. Now, as I see myself on camera here, wouldn't be bad for me to run a razor across my face. All right, number one, most upvoted question from Roy L. What has been your most popular programmed workout and your most unpopular? VNR podcast had me thinking about this when Boz mentioned being publicly scrutinized for his games programming. Oh, good question. And such potential for 8:32 p.m. in China. Roger that. Okay, roger that. I could go down a rabbit hole too about people criticizing publicly Boz's programming, and not just for Boz. I'm not rushing to his defense. The man's a grown-up, doesn't need defense, and actually what he does spoke for itself. Good evening from Pakistan. Good evening. But just people on the internet in general that just chirp. That could be a general topic, that I could go down a rabbit hole on. It's astonishing the level of just amazing expertise that there is in all facets of the world on the internet. It's amazing. And yet, in face-to-face conversations, you just don't meet so many experts. But everyone's very loud on the internet with a strong opinion. Back to the question. Okay, my most popular and unpopular workouts. I could go back through, I've got Google Sheets or Google Docs and Google Docs of every year that I've programmed, saved, on my computer from, 2022 back all the way to 2014. And I'm sure, it would take a tremendous amount of time that I could just sit there and sift through things and have a memory spark and as to, oh, that's right, this, that, and the other thing. So, I didn't do that. Things that just popped into my head, I put up there. There are named programmed workouts that, as far as I'm concerned, they're just like moths to a flame. You could just program them and people will it'll turn a bad day into a good day. They just absolutely adore them. So there's a couple that always pop into my head that I can just be like, this is going to be a ray of sunshine in everybody's life. I would say actually the number one that if I program it, people just love it, the Chief. People adore the Chief. And I adore it too. It's a really fun workout. And if you're unfamiliar with the Chief, you just need a 135-pound barbell for the men, 95 pounds for the women. It's 5 3-minute rounds, and there's a minute rest between each 3-minute cycle. And that basically 5 3-minute AMRAPs. In that 3 minutes, you're just doing as many rounds as you can of 3 power cleans, 6 push-ups, and 9 air squats. And that's it. Chief's also a beautiful trap because those numbers are very low, that it doesn't seem that bad. And of course, it adds up really quickly, which the overwhelming majority of the time is what you want a good AMRAP to do, unless you have an intention and a plan as to why to do the opposite. But most AMRAPs, you don't want to be hard in round 1 or round 2. You want the accumulation of all the volume to hit down the road, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow. Kind of the same deal with Cindy. Round 1 of Cindy shouldn't be an event that makes you question your life choices, but doing 5, 10, 15 for 20 minutes is an entirely different story. So yeah, the Chief is a great one. The Chief is just sunshine in everyone's life. Another one, because people love the barbell. You can tell people what they should do, and we do all the time. But there are things that people just enjoy, and that's okay. DT. You throw DT out there, you're going to have a very large amount of extremely happy people. It's just barbell from the floor, barbell in the hang power clean, barbell going overhead. Reps aren't super high, although it is 5 rounds, and it's, a little on the heavy side, and people really enjoy DT. And you could keep this common theme going of just things that people enjoy. Classic, strength days, you throw out a 7x1 deadlift, people are going to be happy. It's a heavy back squat day, people are going to be happy. It is what it is. And that doesn't apply to all barbell movements. Thrusters don't generally make people happy. That's not really how that goes. Unpopular things, that's easy. That's our bread and butter, right? That's what we do. We do what's effective, not necessarily what's popular. And I'll tell you what, I've got one of the most unpopular and potentially nasty workouts we did was just recently. Correct me if I'm wrong. That 3x1 mile repeat that we did, was that last week, the week before? That was absolutely miserable. I was astonished at how much that stung. And again, I don't even really mind running that much, so to speak, but it was nasty. So if we're talking in general unpopular workouts, running, especially if you're running long, sprint days in general, you can have to twist some people's arms to get out there. And then probably days that have strict gymnastics are just very, very challenging as well. But it's the funny thing, right? It's also where a huge amount of the benefit lies, in those unpopular days. And so you've got to mix them in. And I've got to give, it also depends upon the individual. There's obviously people in our community that feel the polar opposite way, that have dread when the chief or 7x1 deadlift comes up and they see 3x1 mile running repeats and they're like, thank you so much, this is going to be such a great fun day. So there's certainly some variance in there, but overwhelmingly chief and DT, I would say, are just, people adore them. So that's that. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to chat about that other potential rabbit hole. I just don't know. I'll touch on it for a second. I'll touch on it for a second. The rabbit hole thing. It's just funny to me, and this is not just the Bosman Games. If he's got scrutinized for some of his programming stuff, and whoever it is, doesn't matter. It's just so funny to me. That's interesting. It's a good and bad thing about the internet, right? Freedom's a wonderful thing. So the good thing about the internet is everybody has a voice. And I actually genuinely mean that. That's the greatest thing. Everybody should have a voice. The bad thing about the internet is everybody has a voice. And it requires very little effort, very little validation. There's no vetting of anyone. You just send a comment, you just throw out a tweet, you just make a snarky remark, and you can do it while sitting on your couch, adding nothing to planet Earth. And you can launch this remark to somebody who's a master in their field as frequently as you want to do, and there's really no repercussions. It's bizarre. So the internet sometimes is a bizarre thing, and that's why I do believe, not all, so maybe this isn't a fair statement, but a whole heck of a lot of the chatter on the internet is meaningless or disruptive or devoid of value and credentials and misleading, or, just, it's bizarre. The internet's a bizarre place. Anyway. Okay, here we go. Got me off track for a second, but I got myself back on track. Next most upvoted question is from Sebastian. How about a Linchpin Garage Gym directory? That's not a bad idea. When I travel, part of the experience is visiting different CrossFit boxes. It would be awesome to have a CrossFit Linchpin directory of gyms or I love this one, voluntary Linchpin Garage Gyms that would be open to drop-ins. So cool. Let me be the first to say that to anyone in this community, if they are more than welcome to drop into my garage gym whenever they visit Quito, Ecuador, just shoot me a DM. So, first of all, awesome question. Absolutely love it. I think it's tremendous. Second one is, let me do a quick Google search here on the Googles. What is the elevation in Quito, Ecuador? Isn't it like 11,000 feet or something like that? Quito, Ecuador. I mean, how is it? Elevation not the first thing that pops up? Here we go. Elevation. Okay, no, it was a little high. 9,350 feet is the elevation in Quito, aka 2,850 meters, making it the second highest capital city in the world. Second highest? What is the first? First has to be like La Paz, Bolivia. That would be my guess for highest capital city. So, okay, so Quito's at like 9,300 feet of elevation. Fun Quito story. Way back in 2013 when Ian Wittenberg and I did the motorcycle trip across the U.S., across Mexico, across Central America, and down through South America, we made our way to Quito, Ecuador, and I didn't want to do it, but I felt like I needed to do it, and that was, well into the trip. I mean, we left from Montana. It takes a while to ride motorcycles and get to Quito, Ecuador. I did dumbbell Fran in Quito, Ecuador, and I remember vividly to this day because I have a photograph that Ian Wittenberg snapped of me not looking my best, on like one knee afterwards. I don't know if I did vomit, but there was a large, like disgusting, just string of drool from my mouth to the floor because I had a near-death experience. So Quito, Ecuador, yes, it's marked into my head. Had some great food there in Quito also. So yeah, if people are in Quito, they should pop in. Getting back to the garage gym directory, it's awesome. And of course, it would have to be voluntary, right? You couldn't just make everyone's home address publicly available. That would be not good. There are things that occur every now and then, and this falls into it. There are things that occur which are simple, wonderful ideas that are thrown out casually and take 2 or 3 sentences to type, and that's it. And the actual amount of back-end work that is required on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to create, maintain, and upkeep a monstrous database is huge. So there's 2 different aspects to this. What I can probably do, because that amount of work I'm here to tell you, there's just no way I could pull that off. There's no way I could just stay on top of a database of thousands and thousands of home addresses to make sure everything's current. Not realistically, humanly possible. Not going to happen. What I could potentially do is, use the technologies and chat with the fine people at BTWB and maybe see is there something in the world of ones and zeros that could be created where, everybody in Linchpin gets some email or form or something from BTWB that you obviously check a box that you agree to this if it's what you want to do. And then almost like in the BTWB squads feature or something on the app, there could be potentially a directory that you could toggle through country, state, whatever it happened to be, and see in whatever area you would get a list of anyone who was on that list and voluntarily chose to be so. That would be a really great solution. It would just live on everybody's phone. It would be constantly updated. It would go with you wherever you want. And that's pretty darn cool. So, Sebastian, you have my word. I will reach out to the folks at BTWB and bring that up and see if that's possible. I think it's really cool. Okay, next most upvoted question from Joseph M.G. Okay, this is a nice one too. I think this one came up the other week, but it didn't get the votes. Got it this week. Here we go. All right. So we know through science and CrossFit that short, high-intensity efforts translate to better endurance in running versus being good at the long runs. Versus being good at the long runs doesn't necessarily mean you can crush the short sprints. Does the same apply to lifting? Meaning, does lifting under fatigue typically lead to better gains when fresh compared to if you only lifted when you're fresh? Cool question, okay? Cool question. So there's something in the first part that I think, for the sake of accuracy and precision, we should clarify a little bit. So the first part of your question, you said, we know through science and CrossFit that short, high-intensity efforts translate to better endurance in running, versus being good at the long runs doesn't mean that you can crush the short sprints. Kind of correct. Kind of correct. Because the first sentence that you said there, we know through science and CrossFit that short, high-intensity efforts translate to better endurance in running. I don't think that's completely accurate. Okay, so, because what that means is you're going to be a better endurance runner. We never said that you're going to be a better endurance runner. CrossFit never said you're going to be a better endurance runner. Now, doing short sprints undoubtedly will greatly improve your capacity, even if you are just a long distance runner. And you should be doing those as part of your training, correct. But I think a more accurate way to phrase that first part, instead of using the word better, is speaking to what you will be able to do. So basically what CrossFit is saying is, if you only live in long, slow distance, then you will crash and burn and not have any real capacity to speak of if you try to go out and sprint. That it doesn't go that way. However, if you do sprint, and you sprint your tail off with some wonderful variance, you will have the ability to go out and run a 5K. You may not be happy, and you may not beat the person that just is a long distance runner, so don't get that confused. But you will have the ability to do it, but it doesn't work the other way. So that, I think, is a more fair and accurate way to kind of lay the groundwork for that first part of the question, and that directly translates to the second part of your question, because there's a difference between saying, if you do this, you're going to be better at the other thing, versus if you do this, you will have capacity to do the other thing. So that's important. Let's see. Hold on a second here. Okay. So now let's get to the crux of the question with regards to you only lift fresh versus you lift under fatigue, you lift with interference, you lift with all sorts of other things. And now that I've set the groundwork with that first part of the running, it's a very nice one-for-one play off of that. Is we're not necessarily saying that you will be a better lifter on a 7x1 day, a better lifter on a 5x5 back squat day, if you do these other days where you're lifting under duress, where you're lifting under fatigue. But, because we do both, right? We still do the just fresh, just respect the heavy days, but then of course we also do the mixed modality lifting under fatigue portion. And what that gives you the ability to do as the athlete is expose yourself to a tremendous amount of variance, which, by the way, is more beneficial and helpful to the human body than I think we fully understand in the scientific realm thus far. And that will give you the capacity as an athlete to excel in both arenas. Where had you just lifted fresh and you never did it under duress, what we see time and time again is that strength that you thought you had developed in the gym, but you only did it fresh, suddenly dissipates and doesn't show up in the real world when your heart is just racing at 180 beats a minute. It's not there. And so we have to do all of these things to maximize what your capacity, the breadth and depth of your capacity as an athlete. That's the mission critical part. Now, the other part here is, I do believe, undoubtedly, and I can't show you a scientific study, my apologies, that it does improve your just classic lifting days in the gym. I've been doing this for quite some time. I know it's anecdotal evidence, but I would bet a large sum of money that our mixed modality days, our Metcon days, even something like Fran, right, that is at a quote-unquote light thruster under fatigue, 21-15-9. I mean, nothing about Fran looks like a 7x1 heavy front squat. Time domain's totally different. You're not taking any rest. There's amazing interference. You can't even breathe. Your legs are full of lactic acid. The loading is really light. All of those days have an interplay that CrossFit has proven. I'm not sure what's going on in the laboratory under a petri dish. That CrossFit has proven doing all of these things, it makes for a fitter, more capable, more competent individual. And there are even people, in the community, you can hit up in the Facebook group, take somebody like Tanner, right? Tanner B. Just a monstrously strong individual, obnoxiously strong individual who has done just pure lifting, just dedicated lifting programs, and now will be the first to tell you that moving lightweight and moving lightweight heavy under duress undoubtedly has bumped up those top end numbers, and most likely in ways that we don't truly and fully understand. There is some mysterious parts of variance. It's kind of like, science follows observation, and there are some things that the exercise science community has observed and then try to figure out why and come back and say, yes, it works. But science follows observation. It doesn't happen the other way around. And so what I mean by that is there's usually a coach on the athletic field, and this is something that Glassman used to say all the time, because he would get these questions about, well, is there a study that supports whatever? And he would always say, very honestly, no, there's not. Because for years and years, nobody was training like this. Everybody was training with Monday and Thursday was chest and tri. Tuesday and Friday was back and bis. You do 3 sets of bench, flat, incline, declines, and flies. You rest a minute between each one of those sets. Then you just do cardio for 40 minutes, but you don't do anything other than just cardio, steady state. And then you do some crunches on the side. There was no mixed modality, high intensity. There was nothing like that going on. And then people started doing this mixed modality training and skyrocketing their fitness. But it was nascent. It was new, right? And so since it was new, there wasn't years and years of observational data and studies to be figured out, as to why this stuff was working. And so somebody would inevitably ask Greg somewhere like, is there a peer-reviewed study on A, B, C, or D? And he'd be like, no. We're leading the way on this. And what, he would largely say is, just imagine you've got a coach with a whistle around his neck running a football team or whatever sports team you want. And the coach has been doing this particular type of training, which is non-traditional compared to what's happened for decades previously. And this football team is the most conditioned, strong football team in the division, or whatever it happens to be. It's unquestionable, right? But this individual's methods are different, and they're, counterintuitive. I used to tell this story, and we probably couldn't tell it as good as him, but, it'd be like if a guy in a white lab coat walked up to this coach, this old salty coach with a whistle around his neck, just doing what he's been doing for years, making these athletes into beasts. And the people in the white lab coat says, hey, coach, just so you know, what you're doing is a bit different, and there's no scientific evidence or data or peer-reviewed studies to support that what you're doing works, and so it doesn't work. And he would just sit there blowing his whistle, being like, well, my eyes and the performance of these individuals has been saying something different for 15 years, so I appreciate your input, but we're going to keep doing what works here. And then, lo and behold, if it keeps working, it gets somebody's attention, and then eventually it would get enough attention that somebody would be like, what's going on with this team down the street that's doing this non-traditional stuff? They're just crushing it. Let's figure it out. Science follows observation, right? The observation happens first. Why is this happening? Then they do some study, figure out what's going on. Like, oh, by the way, we did this 3-year longitudinal study. Good news. We got good news for you. We now have a paper that says what you're doing works, so you should keep doing it. And the coach would probably have some vulgarities to throw their way. But he's like, thanks. I didn't need your paper. I've been seeing it work with hundreds and thousands of people every darn day, but thanks for the paper. And to some degree, I don't know if there's scientific data, that's I guess my point, of lifting under duress and what does it translate to on a fresh day. I'd be lying to you if I said that I did. But I can tell you, after 16 years of coaching CrossFit, that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm convinced that it moves the needle. And in an interesting way, so hear me out on this. Let's just say that lifting under fatigue did not help your fresh days, okay? So doing something like DT, it wasn't going to, even though there's a deadlift in DT, it wasn't going to help your 7x1 deadlift day, okay? And doing Fran, bunch of front squats, thrusters if you will, isn't going to help your 7x1 front squat day. Like, they're separate and distinct domains, animals, and they have to be trained. There's no interlap and no interplay in the human body, which doesn't make any sense. But let's just say that for a second. There would still be mission critical value to doing the lifting under fatigue. Mission critical for the real life. And this is exactly why. You can go back just a couple episodes ago, Very Not Random number 72. Boz and I talked about CrossFit training for military members. And I actually polled the Linchpin community for responses to this from active and previous military members. And one of the greatest responses that really actually captured Adrian's attention was this one individual. I want to say he was in the EOD. I can't remember which branch of the service, but Explosive Ordnance Disposal Bomb Squad, if you will. And he spoke about one of the mission critical things that CrossFit does that really no one else does, is you have to do complicated movement patterns under duress, under stress, under fatigue. And you have to lift loads that are complicated under duress and under fatigue and get your brain to think in the right sequence. And you can think about doing some sort of workouts that's multiple rounds, you can't catch your breath, and you come back in and you're grabbing a barbell and you're doing something that is complicated, so to speak. It's a power clean, it's a squat clean, it's a clean and jerk. That is a deliberate and dedicated, deliberate sequence that you have to engage your musculature and your brain to make sure that the sequence that you're moving your body is appropriate and proper, and you're doing that while under duress. You're doing something complicated under fatigue and stress. That's very uniquely CrossFit, okay? And you're moving an external load, potentially a heavy one. It's also very uniquely CrossFit. And whatever you do all the time is what you get good at. So we do things like that all the time, which means we get good at thinking under duress, doing complicated things under duress, moving load while fatigued. We know what it feels like physically, we know what we can push through, and we know what it takes between the ears. And this individual in the EOD said, that's just a perfect translation as to what he has to do. He might have some extraordinarily heavy bomb disabling robot on his back that he has to rucksack into some place, be miserable and hyperventilating and pouring sweat, and all his muscles are just aching from this effort, and then do all this kind of complicated work using his brain with heavy objects. And he said CrossFit was basically a perfect analog for that. Perfect. And so there's huge benefits to that. And you can think about this in other examples, right? Of your lifting under fatigue, how if you don't do it and you only do it fresh, it will break down. Think about if you had somebody that only did pull-ups fresh. That's it. The only time they did pull-ups was on an upper body strength day, so to speak. And they would do 3 or 4 sets of max pull-ups with 3 minutes rest between each. That's it. Never interfered them with anything else. Well, what do you think is going to happen if they go out and do Helen? And they're doing really hard 400-meter runs, swinging a kettlebell, and then they need to hop up on the pull-up bar. Those pull-ups are going to be markedly different and in the toilet compared to what they normally did, because they didn't train outside of that very narrow window. And the same thing's going with the barbell and lifting under fatigue. I had I had a very similar incident to this occur several years ago where I did a, just off the cuff, it was not like a formal organized event, but a friendly shooting match, me against somebody else. And it actually happened to Castro's Ranch, as a matter of fact. And this guy that I was shooting against is legitimately a nationally ranked shooter. He is a phenomenal shot. He is a far better shot than I am. Yes, I was a SEAL. Yes, that was a long time ago. Yes, I shoot like once a year now. But this individual was just a far better shooter than I am. And what we did, though, is we did something mixed modality, and it got him out of his comfort zone. We did something that involved like some burpees and some other stuff. You jacked up the heart rate, and then once you did these other things, it fatigued your body and caused all kinds of just discomfort and duress, which isn't traditionally how these national shooting matches happen. They're very, you're not doing exercise, so to speak. And then we get up to the line, and I beat him every single time on the shooting because I was very familiar with what does that feel like under duress. Can I do complicated things when my heart's beating out of my chest? All my muscles are shaking and I still have to engage my brain and do something precise. Can I? And the answer is yes. And a lot of that comes from what we do every single solitary day in CrossFit. And you're not going to have that capacity magically. You're only going to have that capacity if you train it. So that's basically that. Okay, let's see. And let's see, finally, so I would just say, real life doesn't operate in isolated silos, and, neither do we with our training, and the payoff is worth it. Okay, final one. Walter K. Walter K said, I've got it right here. I currently have 0 gymnastics, unless wall walks count. I can do a few of them, that's about it. What would be the best order to go through the offered programs and starting to learn them? So BTWB, in case you're unfamiliar with them, and VNR has some fantastic specialty programs, great specialty programs, and you should check them out on a wide range of topics. So he's talking about these programs and what order should he go? So here's kind of what just popped into my head roughly. First one, and there's not a program for this, but you should just develop a good strong plank hold. If you don't have a good strong plank hold, that's where I would start, because midline stabilization and the ability to keep your body in a safe position is going to translate into everything else that you're going to want to do. So you got to have that first. So plank hold. After the plank hold, now you said you have a wall walk. So there's a pretty good chance that you have a a push-up, but you didn't tell me that. So I'm just going to go in my normal, just linear progression here. Make sure you have a plank hold. After that, develop push-ups. After that, I would develop some dips, and you might be able to be working on a couple of these things simultaneously, by the way. Get some dips, and that's strict, of course, not kipping. Then I would move myself towards a pull-up, strict, not kipping. I would then work into a static handstand hold, and there are ways that you could scale that if right off the bat that was too much, pike position, waiter's walks, there's a bunch of stuff that you could do. Static handstand hold, then strict handstand push-ups. At the same time now, you could probably be working on strict ring muscle-ups and things like that, and then you could progress to putting it together with like handstand walks. So that would probably be just a rough little off-the-cuff journey that I would take somebody through for gymnastics. And don't violate the order, right? Far too many CrossFitters, myself included, didn't want to work on the basic, not sexy, yet essential stuff. I wanted to rush into the ring muscle up, so don't do that. Or rush into the handstand walk, or rush into something else. So take your time, do it right, and be good to go. All right, let's see. Couple Linchpin shout-outs. Baby made noise a second ago, but she did not wake up, so we're winning. And here we go. All right, let's see. Well, one of these is labeled first pull-up, and so let's pull that one out since we just spoke about gymnastic stuff. First pull-up. What do we have here? This is from Ashley S. She says, upper body anything is my weakness, and the coolest thing happened today. After warming up, I wanted to see how far away I was from doing a pull-up, and to my surprise, I did one strict-ish pull-up today. My legs may have been flailing, but my chin got over the bar. Super cool. How awesome is that? So congratulations, Ashley, putting in the work, and it is paying off. Let's see here. Oh, what was this? I always label these things, these screenshots, things that I think will spark something in my brain, and then they don't. This says, beasts with brains. Why do I say beasts with brains? Let's open this one and see what it is. Okay. Gotcha. Now it makes sense. So, recent member of the community, Nicholas M., one of our favorite Canadians. I might have said this recently as well. He went for a run and rolled his ankle off the sidewalk and broke his foot. And so now he's doing all kinds of modified workouts every day. And he is doing all sorts of different modifications on whatever the linchpin workout of the day happens to be, and he's posting in the private Facebook group, and he is finding phenomenal, awesome workarounds to keep himself in tip-top shape, work some areas that maybe might have been neglected because now he can't use one of his legs, and just the overall, and I said this the other day in the community, the overall strength and conditioning IQ that I see exhibited on a daily basis fills me with pride. So really cool, really good stuff. This last one says huge PR. Let's see what that is. Huge PR. This will be the last one. Everybody wants a huge PR, right? Here we go. Aha! Nick B. When was this from? Not sure. Some of these are been there a couple months. Nick B. I love days like today. They are confirmation of the process. Showing up every day. I know the accessory work is optional, but I never skip L-sits, V-ups, etc. So I guess he embraces the midline work. It's a good thing to embrace. Last time, I did all 20-second holds. Today, all 30-second holds. I kept telling myself what others did during the dead hangs. You can hold on for a little longer. Got a massive PR today of 7 minutes and 45 seconds. So he did this workout 7 minutes and 45 seconds faster than last time. He finished the workout in 13:55. Wow, congratulations. Excellent job. I can't remember what the workout was. It had some L-sits in it. What I'm thinking is it's probably that workout that we posted. I think we've done it twice, which is accumulate 3 minutes in an L-sit, and every time you break, run 400 meters. And so it sounds like he shaved 7 minutes and 45 seconds off of his time, which is ridiculous. All right, so finally, quick chat about, as I've just been trying to get the word out there, I'll be at the Rogue Invitational. Oh no, my daughter just sat up at 6:10 a.m. I didn't want to see that happen. Okay, she just laid back down. Hopefully that was just real quick and she's going to go back to sleep. Come on, Lane, you can do it. You can do it. Go back to sleep. I'm going to be at the Rogue Invitational at the end of October. The last day of the Rogue Invitational is October 30th. I believe it's a 3-day competition, so that would make it the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Round Rock, Texas. Super cool. If you can get there. I'll see you there. And then we're in September, so we've got our Linchpin challenges happening, and this month is going to be test number 1, which Linchpin test number 1 is for time. When I say the word Fran, it's 21-15-9 thrusters and pull-ups, but the loading's lighter. 75-pound barbell for men, 55 for women. So that's what I mean when I say Fran right now. Test 1 is 400-meter run, Fran. 400-meter run, Fran. 400-meter run. That's test 1. And so we'll be doing the challenge again. There'll be a couple cool shirts that you can earn if you want with everybody's names on the back. There'll always be a black shirt available, and we're experimenting with other colors right now. And then I'm going to have another piece of swag that if people want to get it, it could be cool. I'm not going to say what it is yet. We're doing some test samples. And I think it'll be, where's my calendar? Don't hold me to this right now. We're still in the planning process, but I think it's going to be like the Friday to Monday of September 23rd to the 26th. So in a few weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, 23rd to the 26th. No video required. Do it for free if you want. Just see where you fall out on the leaderboard. If you want to get a shirt, get a shirt. So that's it. I'll keep everybody posted on that. And have a great day.